Speak to you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Please be seated. I'm compelled to take it from the top this morning. God made a world and called it good. A world outside of himself, but somehow by the power of God, still in him and for him and by him. A place of absolute nearness to him. And God walked there among his creatures. He spoke without intermediaries. There was no need for the prophets in paradise. God was not hidden. The knowledge of good and evil wasn't a problem because goodness itself was not theoretical. It was not an idea. It was instead the immediate fact of the good world God made. The fact of God's paradise. It was good because he said so. To call it good was to call it free. To put little godlings into his God-made world was to put himself, the purpose, flavor, meaning of himself into that world. It was to put comedy into that world, to put drama there. You think things are going one way, but wait, they're going another. Everyone, God himself loves a good story, and a good story has twists and turns. God extended himself in his goodness, this free paradise. Fruit on the trees, glory, peace, but the intrigues, the curiosities that make God a creator made his godlings the same as him. And though they were called good, within that call to God's goodness was a freedom to split, to rebel, to divide, to cover themselves, to be irreverent. Romans chapter 5, verse 6, for while we were still weak, at the right time, Christ died for the ungodly, asebon, the irreverent ones, the restless ones. The creatures reached for knowledge instead of trust, hope knowledge, adventure instead of rest. And they flipped the switch themselves. I have my own body here in the garden my good God has made for me. They held their own breath. And with that breath, they conspired with one another. Couldn't we do what God said not to do? What would it be like if we did not depend on God's voice? We have to know. Part of God's goodness was that he made for his creatures a world that beheld them in the goodness of freedom. But in that freedom is the freedom to not do what he told them to do. In his goodness, he gave them the power to sever themselves from his nearness to them, to be their own story. Little godlings. And the paradise he made them is lost to them. But God does not abandon them in their exile. He follows them east of Eden. He walks into the aftermath of their choice. God's life among them takes on a new shape. Waiting, accompanying, lingering, and sometimes commanding, sometimes contracting. He lies in wait among these wanderers and shepherds in covenants, altars, tents, tabernacles, in songs and the cries of prophets, his intermediaries. Close enough to be felt in the stillest moments to be heard, to be discovered behind the veil of every single event. In his goodness, he gave them the freedom of his riches. And like children given a trust sometimes do, he squandered it. They squandered it. This did not change that they were like him. Dramatic, searching, loving, beholding, longing. They were and still are the center of what he made and called good. Jesus is speaking to the same crowd that heard the Beatitudes. To those who have wandered far from God, even as he stayed near enough to them to be born among them as one of them. God has not yet closed the distance between himself and his creatures for good. He is calling them back to nearness with him. He has become one of them as he always was one of them. They are how he put himself into his world. He entered the world as one of them, the world he made, in the person of his Son, the one who was with him and was him, but was always them too. He spoke their language. He lived in the stormy weather that came with their freedom. He came among them and did not find them that their hearts were so hardened against him as to abandon them. It was the ones who claimed most of all to speak for him, to cover and control what he said to them, those scribes and Pharisees, the rulers and religious professionals. Those were the ones hardening, going blind and deaf to his presence. He would draw close enough to some of them to heal them, to repair them, even to resuscitate them from death, to draw any power out of them that might have command over them and cut them off from him. God walked among them and found that he was still in them, though they had wandered. Though they had forgotten paradise, he was still in their speech, their gestures, their shared meals, their fidelity to one another. They still carried him. They were still made of him, often without knowing it, often despite themselves in denial of it. You are the salt of the earth. This is not a suggestion of what could be. You are the light of the world. Not a hint at God's presence, but the illumination, the illuminated presence of his life in the world. He wandered with us out of his own paradise. Us, those who hear and restore themselves to his trust. God stands there among them in the person of the Son, Jesus, the carpenter's son, Mary's boy from Nazareth in Galilee, saying, "Though you have wandered far from me, you are still my drama, my story, my comedy, my way of being present in the world. You chose to go far from me. Draw near again." The story the world is telling has an end, but I have no end. Be with me in my endlessness, and you will show it to the world, and the consequence of darkness and fear, death itself, will recede. I will pull everything into and through me, and I will restore you to a paradise where you will fulfill the meaning of your freedom, the freedom that I shared with you for eternity.